في كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم وضيق، لكن الطريق للفرحة وطريق الخلاص عند المسيح. أصل المسيح هو الحياة، هو الطريق 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 الطريق
Welcome to The Way TV. 300,000 ISIS-supporting Muslim refugees or immigrants. What they are is followers of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, following the Quran, chapter 8, verse 60. What John 3:16 is to the Christian, for God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son, but it unifies all the Christian world. John 3:16 in the Bible, every Christian I know accepts that. With the 300,000 Muslims coming to the United States, voted in by Congress, Democrats and Republicans, under the omnibus favored by Obama, instead of having John 3:16, this army of 300,000 coming to link up with the 2,000 ISIS-supporting Muslim Brotherhood mosques all over America, 2,000 of these, they're basically forward operating bases. But the Muslim Brotherhood, who controls these 2,000 mosques of America, instead of looking to John 3:16, which we as Christians look at, they look in one verse in particular of the Quran to guide the entire ummah or body of believers of the Muslims, and that is Surah or chapter 8, verse 60. That is the basis of the Muslim Brotherhood logo. We've talked about this before. You can type in Google Images, look up the Muslim Brotherhood logo. At the top, you'll see the Quran, then you'll see the cross swords. At the bottom, you'll see something that almost nobody understands. Certainly the FBI and the CIA, whom I've talked to about this issue, they just blow that off. But at the bottom, that chapter 8, verse 60, is the unifying verse of the 300,000 ISIS-supporting Muslim Brotherhood refugees, if you will, invading army is what they are, coming to the United States. And they follow, as you and I as Christians follow John 3:16, the Muslims, the Muslim Brotherhood, the ISIS, the immigrants coming to the United States, paid for by you and me, voted for by the GOP and the Democrats. That verse means to terrorize and wage war against the infidels. So we have an army of 300,000 pretty much men of military age. They might have a few women there for sex and a few kids there that they brought along so that they can lie to the world that, hey, look, we're just poor little refugees. They're wolves in sheep's clothing coming into the United States. But really, this chapter 8, verse 60, to terrorize and wage war to kill and murder the infidel, to attack Brussels, Paris, Charlie Hebdo, to attack San Bernardino, to fly airplanes into the World Trade Center. Chapter 8, verse 60. This is justice in Islam. Chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran, Surah 8, verse 60, to terrorize and to wage war against the infidel is justice under Islamic law, which is called Sharia. So, clip number 8, if you would show clip number 8, let's see what this Sharia is all about.
and you're not going to take any responsibility. And far more Muslims have died because of the British foreign policy in Muslim countries. You need to start condemning your own foreign policy. You can't say to Muslims,
I think we've established you will not condemn it. I just wonder why you won't condemn it when your own leader, Omar Bakri, said quite simply, I condemn the killing of innocent people on the 20th of July. Why won't you say what he said?
No, at the end of the day, innocent people, when we say innocent people, we mean Muslims. As far as non-Muslims are concerned, they have not accepted Islam. As far as we're concerned, that is a crime against God.
I want to be clear about what you're saying. This is very important. You're saying only Muslims can count as innocent people.
As far as Muslims are concerned, you're innocent if you are a Muslim, then you're innocent in the eyes of God. If you are non-Muslim, then you're guilty of not believing in God. Yes, there were many victims.
You're guilty. Are you seriously suggesting that everybody on those tube trains and on that bus in London on July the 7th was in some way a legitimate target?
You don't allow me to answer the question fully, Stephen. You're never going to get to the bottom of it. Let me begin by saying, as a Muslim, you must have allegiance where the Sharia says that you have allegiance. You must hate and love for the sake of Allah. You must praise and dispraise for what the Sharia says, you praise and dispraise. So as a Muslim, I must support my Muslim brothers and sisters, wherever they are in the world. I must have allegiance with them. I must cooperate with them. I must love them. And similarly, on the other hand, I must have hatred towards everything which is non-Islam.
You know what, I'm trying not to interrupt you too much, but I still don't feel you have addressed my question. Were the people on the underground trains and on the bus legitimate targets because they were not Muslim?
I'm coming on to your point.
Some of them actually were.
No, you've asked about 2 or 3 different questions. You've asked about innocence. You've asked about whether they were legitimate target. You've asked about whether I'm condoning or condemning. You've asked about whether I praise them.
We've moved on from that.
No,
I've asked you a very simple question.
All of those questions deserve to be answered, and obviously we have the time to explore them. So if I just continue with this particular point, as far as Muslims are concerned, their allegiance is always with the Muslims. So I will never condemn a Muslim for what he does. Indeed, I must stand with him, whether he's an oppressor or oppressed. Now, as far as those people who did the operation on 7/7 are concerned, if their actions were in line with the Sharia, and only God can judge that, then they will get the reward for that. Well, if they weren't in line with the Sharia, then obviously they will get they will get the result of that on the Day of Judgment. As far as I'm concerned, I can only see whether it's a legitimate one according to the Sharia or illegitimate according to the Sharia.
When you take that position, you must accept that you are isolated from the world of Muslim thinking and scholarship. If one looks at the statements made by 40 Muslim clerics, leading clerics and scholars in the United Kingdom, if one looks at the statements made by, for example, one of the leading clerics in Pakistan, and I can quote them all to you, they all say that what happened in London was absolutely against Islam.
You can get 100, even 1,000 government scholars, people who are doing the bidding of their own governments, people who are quite willing to sit with Tony Blair and to push his own domestic and foreign policies. As far as Islam is concerned, let me set out the Islamic position, because you want to know what Islam says. As far as Islam is concerned, on the issue of suicide, for someone to take his own life because of depression.
Good job, Mina. When the Brit is trying to come back and say, well, hundreds of Islamic scholars have said that these people in the underground who were blown up and killed on July 7th, 2007 in London, these people are doing what's called taqiyya, lying, which is a huge article also of Islam, just to lie to the infidel. Remember, Justice, chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran, to terrorize and to wage war against the infidel. In waging war, you're obviously always going to deceive the enemy, and that's okay. But this is the basis, as John 3:16 is the basis of Christianity, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. And here you have chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran, which is the Quran in one verse. And it is understood by the Ummah, certainly by Anjem, Choudary, and these other hundreds of scholars that the Brit is referring to, lie when they're saying, oh yeah, this is an evil act and Islam does not teach that. Chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran, which is the center motif of the Muslim Brotherhood, who's the umbrella group controlling all of Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Boko Haram, all of the different Muslim terrorist groups, it says right in there, terrorize and wage war against the infidels. So all of us in America, in Canada, in Europe, wherever we are watching the show, whenever we see a mosque, we should immediately if we want to understand Islam, we should immediately turn in our heads, very simply, to chapter 8, verse 60, Surah 8, which Surah means chapter 8, verse 60, terrorize and wage war against the infidels. Now, for some insane reason, biblical reason, eyes that can't see, ears that can't hear, all of our leaders in the West refuse to believe this. I work with law enforcement all the time and the FBI. I have friends at the highest level working with the CIA and whatnot, and I pass along information. I've exposed a bunch of terror cells in the last several years and whatnot, and really is really rapidly updated in the last 3 or 4 months. But the higher up the person is, like prime minister or president of the West, of Canada, United States, all of Europe, law enforcement, CIA, FBI, all of them, just throw out. They don't want to know. They don't care. The New York Times came out in a crazy article that said they can find no common link whatsoever between all of the Islamic terrorist groups in the world. They can find no link between all of the Islamic terrorist groups of the world. We cannot find a common link between all of the Islamic terrorist groups of the world. It's right out of the Bible. It's just people who refuse to see, who refuse to hear, are begging to bring these ISIS insane animals, savages, raping 10-year-old boys and 12-year-old boys in public pools. We got all the proof, evidence, and facts on that. And so here we have, as a great contrast, the love of the true triune God, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, God in 3 persons, blessed Trinity. John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that so whosoever should believe would have eternal life, right? And then you've got Islam based on their one verse, chapter 8, verse 60. That's all you have to know about Islam is chapter 8, verse 60. It's taught in every mosque in the world, whether it's in Arabic or English or Farsi or Chinese or Japanese. It does not matter. Whenever they translate that in their Quran, the central issue, the central theme of Islam is to terrorize and wage war against the infidels. That's why we're doing this show. And folks, with all due respect, if you open up the book, the Bible, and you go to Genesis chapter 16, verses 11 and 12, it talks about the father of Islam. The guy's name is Ishmael. You could go there right now. You can prove me right or wrong. Go to your Bible, pull out your little smartphone. All you millennials, type in there Genesis 16, 11, and 12, and look up Ishmael. It's basically Surah 8:60, or from the Quran, chapter 8, verse 60, says Ishmael is a wild man, a donkey of a man, his hand against all men, which means he's at war against all men. He's basically a lunatic, a guy that's insane, crazy. We know from the Quran and the Hadith that Muhammad was bewitched. His 6-year-old wife, whom he used to have perverted sex with, she stated in their holy books that Muhammad was bewitched and he had all these crazy bewitched visions and whatnot, which verifies the Genesis chapter 16, 11, and 12. He's a wild man, a donkey of a man, an ass of a man, a crazy man, a lunatic, a bewitched man, and his hand was against everyone forever and ever and ever. And that's the father of Islam, as they believe. I know there's some other brilliant scholars out there. However, while he might not DNA genetically be the biological father of Islam, certainly he is the satanic spiritual father of Islam, and I happen to believe that he is the biological, but or father of Islam. Doesn't matter what I believe. All that really matters is what God believes. Right there, in the Bible. Genesis, chapter 16, 11 and 12. Ishmael, the father of the Muslims. A wild man, a crazy man, a bewitched man, a donkey of a man, an ass of a man, and his hand against all men at war. And there you go. There we have, right in the Quran, chapter 8, verse 60, to terrorize and wage war against the infidel. And you saw Sharia law, and he said in there, in that Sharia law, injustice, that, terrorize and wage war against the infidel is Islamic justice. So as they grow into 2,000 plus mosques in the United States, probably 200-300 mosques in Canada, in Europe, I figure there's 10,000 mosques. They all teach chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran. That's all you got to know. If you can know that, to terrorize and wage war against the infidel is the central meaning, message, theme, essence, sine qua non of Islam. So everybody who says, well, but they're so nice and there's only just a few are bad. Well, look, Mao Zedong. I'm a student of Mao Zedong. I fought against his guerrilla warriors in Vietnam. Mao Zedong, Ho Chi Minh. Mao Zedong wrote about, well, there's just a few of them are bad. Mao Zedong pointed out in Guerrilla Warfare, his little book, which I've read many times, I have a copy of it, that it takes 100 families to support one guerrilla warrior. Well, if there's 4 people in a family, that's 400 people to support one guerrilla warrior, one terrorist. So yeah, the numbers are small, 1 in 400. The numbers are small. But that one guy out of 400 defeated Chiang Kai-shek and did pretty darn good against the French and the Americans in Vietnam. So when people say, well, it's only just a few, well, that's how cell and guerrilla warfare works. So if you have one person with 400 people supporting him, and you're bringing in 300,000 supported by 400 times 300,000, what is that? 120 million people or so for 3,000, 12 million people. I don't have the calculator in. Clip number 2. Clip number 2. Mina, clip number.
With this grounding in the nature of Sharia, the goals and activities of the Muslim Brotherhood to impose it worldwide, and an introduction to the Brotherhood's civilization jihad against the United States, let's take a closer look at one of the Ikhwan's most successful influence operations. Its penetration and manipulation of the Republican Party and the conservative movement in America. For some, it seems incredible that the Muslim Brotherhood would try to suborn the conservative movement and the Republican Party. But knowing what we now do about the organization and its operations, it's actually inconceivable that the Muslim Brotherhood would not try to do so. After all, as we've seen, the Brotherhood's civilization jihad in America has targeted seemingly every governmental agency and pillar of U.S. civil society in the interest of destroying this country from within and by our hands. What's more, the Muslim Brotherhood would logically assign a particularly high priority to neutralizing the right in America, since it could be expected to be among the most likely of communities to oppose the civilization jihad. It was, let's recall, the right in America that was particularly under...
Okay. Now, Frank Gaffney, he used to be Assistant Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan 1.5 million years ago, and dinosaurs roamed in the La Brea tar pits in greater Los Angeles. I'm being tongue-in-cheek, facetious of course. I don't want to be so melancholy that people just turn me off. Okay, now he just said the Muslim Brotherhood infiltrating the GOP. Now they showed the Muslim Brotherhood logo on there. Remember, and at the bottom of that logo was Surah 860, to terrorize and wage war against the infidel. And he just came on, Frank Gaffney, just came on and was talking about the infiltration of the GOP, the grand old party, or as I call them, the grumpy old pedophiles, because believe it or not, a bunch of the billionaires who are in the Republican establishment are homosexuals, aka pedophiles. Wow, what do you think about that? Okay, so now this next clip confirms that the GOP has been hacked and infiltrated by the Muslim Brotherhood, because you're going to see the former president of the United States of America, the leader of the GOP, the grumpy old pedophiles, and he is talking about how much he supports Islam, aka chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran, to terrorize and wage war against the infidel. It's George W. Bush surrounded by the Muslim Brotherhood. Everybody in this clip with George W. Bush is Muslim Brotherhood. Clip number 3.
Thank you all very much for your hospitality. We've just had a wide-ranging discussions on the matter at hand. Like the good folks standing with me, the American people,
that's the President of the United States, Republican. We got to fight him over there so we don't have to fight him here. Remember that? Well, everybody in that clip is Muslim Brotherhood. Everybody in that clip with George W. Bush right there, everybody in that clip believes in Surah 860 to terrorize and wage war against the infidels, just like all the Christians out there right now, me especially, all of us, believe in John 3:16. Are we seeing some problems here? I mean, the DNA, the sine qua non, the genomes, the essence of Islam is found in the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood leadership. That's why I showed that first clip, that guy that I showed you, Anjem Choudary's Muslim Brotherhood, loves ISIS, loves Taliban, loves Boko Haram, because he loves chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran. It's not that hard, but we have been lied to by our leaders that Islam, in fact, George W. Bush has shown the clips a number of times on different shows here, that we worship the same God. That is crazy. The God who gave us John 3:16, for God so loved the world, is certainly not the God who put together, in fact, it was Satan who put together Surah 8, chapter 8, verse 60 of the Quran to terrorize and wage war against the infidels. Let's look at some more confirmation about George W. Bush and the infiltration of the GOP, the grumpy old pedophiles, by the Muslim Brotherhood. Clip number Arba. Clip number Arba.
good evening. We thank the many Muslim nations who stand with us against terror. Nations that are often victims of terror themselves. Tonight's iftar also sends a message to all Americans. Our nation is waging a war on a radical network of terrorists, not on a religion and not on a civilization. As we wage this war to defend our principles.
Okay, and this last clip I'm going to show in closing is a senior law enforcement guy in the United States. He's a counterterrorism commander for the LAPD, and he's talking about how wonderful and great the Muslim Brotherhood is, and the Muslim Brotherhood has evolved into a kinder and gentler form of life. Folks, this is crazy. These guys believe in chapter 8, verse 60, to terrorize and wage war against the infidel. They use the Arabic word taqiyya, to lie to us. This counterterrorism commander, Michael Downing, openly admits, proudly admits, he accepted $50 million from the Muslim countries to bring in imams from the Muslim countries, allegedly to mainstream them. Folks, they ain't mainstreaming these guys. These guys that have come here, just like the 300,000 refugees paid for by the grumpy old pedophiles, the GOP, Paul Ryan, working and bowing down before the Pharaoh, old King Akhenaten, King Tut, Obama himself. Okay, clip number 9. Clip number 9.
The Muslim Brotherhood, is an organization, a politically active motivation. I'm sure it does exist here in a different form. I think that one of the benefits of what we do in terms of dealing with the motivational aspects of terrorism is to outreach and engage with the community so they don't feel isolated, balkanized, oppressed, and besieged. And our biggest counterterrorism strategy in this community is the partnership that we have with the Muslim communities.
The Brotherhood's very active in this county.
I know the Brotherhood is, but see, one of the responsibilities for us to see there's different views about the Brotherhood. Albana, who created it, his idea is different than some of the people that are on the fringe of it here. Just like Republicans and Democrats are more conservative and more liberal, that's what we have here. But the message is not to demonize the Brotherhood here, but to create not to demonize the Brotherhood. But and we don't necessarily engage with the Brotherhood, but people who we're trying to show that, look, the message of Al-Qaeda is unattainable. There's no way we will ever have a worldwide Muslim-dominated world with Sharia law and a caliphate.
Did you believe that the Brotherhood is a document about a civilization jihad and a desire to change life as we know it?
The original doctrine of the Brotherhood is, where it emanated from.
Great job, Mina. Great job. You and Sam do a good job. Okay. The Muslim Brotherhood is deeply infiltrated in the West. The Muslim Brotherhood is deeply infiltrated in Asia, in Europe, in the United States, in Canada, and South America, and Mexico. A lot of people don't know it. Down in Mexico, they're popping up mosques all over the place, converting the Catholics and the Hispanics over to Islam. Why not? PMS, they get power, money, and sex. That's how Muhammad went out and he brought young men in. Like cocaine for grumpy old pedophiles, or little boys for grumpy old pedophiles, the GOP. By the way, the guy's name is Paul Singer. He's a known homosexual who hates the natural family. And Paul, if you want to sue me, I'll be happy in discovery to go to court. I've been involved in 7 federal lawsuits. I'll be happy to go to court and open you up like a can of tuna and find out, indeed, yes, you're a pedophile. So I'm not worried about that. Well, what I am worried about is the Muslim Brotherhood not being understood. And there you have the counterterrorism commander for the LAPD talking about the Muslim Brotherhood being great and wonderful. I didn't go through the whole clip. You can find it online. I'm glad you listened to me, and I hope you understand. We got John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomsoever should believe would have life eternal, right? Pretty cool. From Jesus Christ, the triune God. And on the other hand, you got Satan. And Satan, in chapter 8, verse 60, what does he say? He tells all of the 2,000 mosques in America, the 10,000 mosques in Europe, the 200 or 300 mosques in Canada, and the 300,000 ISIS coming over here, thanks to the GOP voting for them to come here to terrorize and wage war against you and me. Adieu.
في كتير طرق وسط الحياة تاهوا فيها ناس، وطرق تبان مفروشة ورد وتنتهي بألم أصل المسيح